Baconators, mount up. What's up? It's Rob Cressy, founder and editor-in-chief of Bacon Sports, and I'd like to welcome Todd Heyden, co-founder of SportsLock, to the show. If you aren't familiar, SportsLock is changing the way people play fantasy sports by offering a mobile-first, real-time, short-duration fantasy games that's built around the concept of brackets. They are making fantasy sports more social and acceptable to players of all skill levels and abilities. What's sizzling, my friend?
Mr. Cressy, I am honored. I'm honored to be on the show. As you know, a big fan of what you're doing over there professionally, even a bigger fan of who you are personally. And before we even get started, would like to say that anybody listening who hasn't tried SportsLock, all you got to do is download SportsLock. You can go to our website, sportslock.com. Go to the App Store, look at SportsLock, one word, type in the code BACON. In honor of all the Bacon followers, you're going to get some free money in your account. You'll get some cool shit down the road. Type in BACON. We'll take care of you. SportsLock.com. Go to the App Store, look at SportsLock, put in BACON. We'll take care of you.
Loving some bacon. So, Todd, I want to have you on because you are building and doing something great in the world of sports. You're an example of someone who has a burning passion and desire to be the best. And hopefully others who dream of working in sports or building their own business one day can learn from your experience and journey. So I like to start off my shows with one thing. Give me a hashtag random athlete of the day. Any athlete that you want.
Michael Phelps.
Nice. For me, I'm keeping it Michigan for you. Former Michigan running back and Carolina Panthers running back, Tim Biakabatuka.
Well, that's old school. We're going old school. All right, I'm ready for this now. I'm a little more current, but I'm going to flash back a little to an old school today, too. I'm ready for you.
All right. So let's start at the core of who and what SportsLock is and how you're different from DraftKings and FanDuel.
Oh, those two guys. I've never heard of those two sites, so I'll have to think about what they are. Look, the fantasy market is a social market. Fantasy sports has 57 million people in the United States and Canada right now, this year, playing. And a majority of them, over 93%, play because it's fun, it's social, and it's engaging. Look, there's been an amazing pivot in the fantasy space since the passing of this law called the Unlawful Internet Gambling Enforcement Act, which, as anybody who follows the fantasy sports space knows, is pretty much in most conversations taking place right now. And what we saw was that as opposed to building a new industry in fantasy that isn't social, that's about a rags to riches lottery-style format that's played in a salary cap, we believed there was something better. We believed we could build for the future. We could target millennials, and we could focus on something that's mobile first and very social. So what does that mean? It means that SportsLock is creating a social gaming platform for fantasy sports fans. Think about the App Store. Think about a casino. Think about Zynga. Think about any company out there or business out there that has multiple offerings, and we want to do it under one roof. We want to do it under one app. And what you see now with SportsLock is a nucleus of heads-up drafting. That's something that we own, that we've done better, and really we're first at in the entire world. No one was able to build and sync people together drafting live, right? And so the first gameplay we launched is something called fantasy brackets, right? So we do everything in a bracket format. If you know March Madness and you know the excitement of competition in a bracket, we wanted to bring that to fantasy sports fans. So you do a heads-up draft in each round. If you win that round, you survive and advance. You can play against one person. You can play against 4 people, 8 people, 16. The biggest bracket we've ran so far is a 10-week-long, 1,024-person bracket. And we ran that with ESPN Chicago, and it's still going. So that is just the tip of the iceberg. We have a lot to come. We're a different kind of brand in this space. If you look us up or you've seen us, you see this GOAT. We're really trying to build this like a professional sports franchise. And that's the business we're trying to be. Fantasy, and then I'll wrap up, I promise. Fantasy has a lot of ways that we can grow this space, right? As entrepreneurs, even as a consumer, I was never satisfied with what existed. That was a problem. And me and my co-founder, Ross Carroll, decided to do something about it. And so far, SportsLock is off to a very good start.
Yeah, and I can say that one thing I like a lot about what you guys is the social aspect of things. Even though I'm so firmly entrenched in the daily fantasy sports community, I see a big gap on the social side of things. It's you're playing against random people, and it is very much the whole lottery system. But as you and I have talked about so many times, the reason I play fantasy is because it's fun. I love doing it with my friends. It's why we all do season-long fantasy leagues. I don't care about the money. I just care about the winning and beating my friends.
Absolutely. And of course, you got to have, look, most of us sports fans want to have some skin in the game. It adds for the entertainment of it, right? It doesn't matter to what kind of person, whether that's $500 or $5 or something in between or something bigger or smaller. It's nice to have something riding on it. And that's exactly who we're building for, Rob. We're building for people like you and me. We're building more for the fan that likes to play with their friends, like season long. But if you were like us, we started to feel that season-long fantasy, the same way I've been playing for the last, I think, 12 years in my league, was getting a little stale. And I'm tired of living and dying by the waiver wire and living and dying by injuries. So why not build something that's customizable, that can be personalized, that I can do with my friends around big events throughout the year, not just during football season. I'm talking about the majors in golf. I'm talking about the NFL playoffs. I'm talking about March Madness. We're talking about how do you make the month of July, if you're a baseball fan, feel like it's the playoffs. These are the tasks that we have that we believe we have the solutions to. And again, there is so much more growth coming out of SportsLock in our offices in 2016 and beyond. And what you're seeing now is really just the tip of it. But it's always going to be focused on social, and it's always going to be focused on building unique, creative games that you can play with your friends. That is where we believe we separate from the rest of the space.
Well, I'm glad that you brought up creative, because a couple weeks ago, I'm watching college football on ESPN, and boom, what do I see? I see an ad for SportsLock, and it was relevant and it was edgy. So talk to me about your branding, because I haven't been able to have a connection with the FanDuel and DraftKings branding because it is so generic. It doesn't speak to me as the fan who they're supposed to be targeting. I saw you, and it was a lot more like almost like a Funny or Die ad meets fantasy sports, and I think it speaks volumes about the type of company you are and the consumer you're looking to reach, because I actually felt more of an attachment to you guys. I was like, wait, these guys get the way that we consume content. It's not, hey, let's push this out, push it out, push it out, push it out. It's, wait a second, look at this awesome piece of content that just so happens to be an ad. This is why you should check out SportsLock.
Yeah, that's something that we definitely had a lot of fun with, but we see a huge opportunity there as well. How do you build a sports company, specifically a gaming company, and how do you make it a brand that people want to wear? How do we get people wearing SportsLock and wearing the GOAT? That was a big thing for us, and so with our first stint on TV, it was more important to us to go for the awareness, to go for what the brand could feel like, right? The message behind the brand. What does it take to be the greatest? And we had 2 commercials that we run. And we did this kind of funny spoof, again, similar to a Funny or Die. And those are the guys that inspire us, Rob. You know, I'm inspired by humor. I'm inspired by companies that can be creative and can push the line. And don't get me wrong, there are going to be some people who don't like hearing 2 people in a bedroom, and then one of the people stops doing what he's doing in that bed with a significant other, and he goes to draft. And then we go on and we say, well, the greatest have always had trouble prioritizing, right? But fantasy comes first. But in my mind, in 2015, being edgy is the only kind of business I'd want to run in terms of our message. And again, I'm building this like a sports company. We're building it so that people can relate and connect to us and want to be a part of our brand. The one product, the first gameplay we have, the first iteration of this platform, it's an incredible thing from a consumer's perspective. Obviously, something we're very proud of from an entrepreneurial perspective and business owners. But there's something bigger here, Rob. We have a community of 50+ million people that essentially use fantasy for the same reason. Connect, competition, entertainment, makes watching games more fun. Let's build a brand in the space that people can connect to, can be a part of, and that we can grow the community that way as well. So we definitely took a little bit of a different approach, especially when you compare us to the other people in our space and how direct they've been, right? Rags to riches, bonuses, things like that, making it really not feel like to our, in our mind, a company that we could relate to. And so I'm glad to hear you say that. And we definitely had a lot of fun with it. We look forward to doing many more things like that in 2016. And here's the truth. I'm not going after a 50-year-old with that message. I'm going after us. I'm going after millennials. I'm going after someone who's going to look at that and laugh, right? Not someone who's going to say that, I can't believe you would show that scene during the day and you should be ashamed. We got those. And we're going to keep doing fun stuff in the space. That's what the sports community should be about. And you know what? You're going to get some people turning their heads if you're willing to, as an entrepreneur, like I said, push the envelope, and we definitely are.
Let's talk about that logo on your hat, the GOAT. What is the GOAT? mean to your company and just everything behind it? Because the GOAT of all GOATs is Michael Jordan, us being in Chicago. But tell me a little bit more about how the GOAT and the branding works with you guys.
Fun fact, before Jordan had the mansion, and if anybody wants to go watch Michael Jordan's airtime, yours truly is in that movie as Michael Jordan was a neighbor of mine when he grew up on Windy Hill before he moved. So fun fact of the day.
Nice.
The GOAT to us is about being the greatest, right? And I said this before, when we were building this company, we really wanted to build this like a sports team. So whether you call it a mascot, you call it something that you can relate to, we wanted to have something that we can own. And the GOAT is something that a lot of sports fans talk about. We're always mentioning the greatest of all time, whether it's players or teams or coaches, you name it, organizations. But nobody in the business had owned that. And we saw a huge opportunity here. It wouldn't say that it's a tie to MJ, but we're definitely inspired by greatness. And that is our goal here. We are in this business to build the greatest product for fantasy sports fans in the history of the world. And when we set out to do something, we don't set out to kind of go half-assed, right? We don't set out to do something okay. We set out to be great. And when everybody here, all 15 of us, left something that, some job, something corporate or something else that we were doing, and we were all really successful. But we hadn't built something from the ground up collectively as this unit, as this team. And that's what we're striving to be. And so whether you could be the greatest janitor, you could be the greatest brother, you could be the greatest husband, the greatest friend, the greatest athlete, the greatest entrepreneur, the greatest salesman, the greatest of your friends, right? It doesn't even have to be the greatest in the world. All you got to do is beat your stupid friends and you're great in fantasy, right? And that's what we're going for here. And so we didn't want to do something that was lame. We didn't want to do something that we wouldn't want to wear. And we really love the idea behind the GOAT, and that is what we strive to be. We strive to be great, and that's a motto that drives us every day to keep building a better product.
Amen to that. I certainly attest to that. I love greatness, and that's what I strive for every day. So I want a short answer on this one because there's a lot other things that I want to talk about. But
you mean I'm talking too long? You mean I like to talk? My fault.
No, not at all. There's just better questions, but this is one that I have to ask. That with all the regulations that are going on out there, specifically New York with DraftKings and FanDuel, people often ask me, Rob, where's daily fantasy going? Is it here to stay? I certainly believe it is, but what's your thoughts on that?
My thought on this is as follows. One, we have a very myopic view of what daily fantasy could be. Okay, here's what I'm telling you. We have a law that says you can risk money and win money in fantasy sports. Whether that means a game should last one day, a full season, or something in between. And we're trying to pioneer the in-between. Fantasy has two industries, season long and daily. I want to be a hybrid. I don't want to ever be classified as daily. And yes, I'll do some things that might be a very long bracket or could last a whole season, but I don't want to be season long either. I want to pioneer the future of fantasy sports. And so from a SportsLock perspective, we're pretty agnostic as opposed to, regarding what takes place in our space. As the laws shift, so will we, and I think that smart entrepreneurs have to think that way. Personally, I'll tell you this. One-day fantasy where you just have one, whether it's basketball or it's one day of football, to me as a consumer, it just feels very short, right? There's some things that we're doing where the results, in terms of surviving and advancing and going to the next round, so each round can still last that day, but you're a part of something bigger or 1 week. That's where we see the future of fantasy. And so, you know what? I can't predict what's going to happen in New York. What I can tell you is that all these things taking place now is actually very good for the space. It's good for the long-term growth of fantasy. It's good so that consumers can understand what takes place between the operators and what that relationship can look like. We don't have a lot of regulations in our space. I don't think the government should get involved. I think we can self-regulate this, and actually we have been behind something that we're working with the Fantasy Sports Trade Association on building a self-regulating committee. And most industries have that. Here's the funny thing. The American Medical Association, right? They govern all the doctors. The National Futures Association, any traders out there know that. If you're the NCAA, right? Look at how that's governed. A lot of big industries have self-governing bodies in charge. National Realtors Association, same stuff. We need that here also. There has to be more regulation so that people feel safe and comfortable. And that's what this space is all about if you want to have healthy growth. Consumers trusting the operators, and we got to make sure that they do. And so I'm all for regulations, and we've said that from the beginning, and I think it'll make our industry healthier.
Cool. So I've experienced a lot of the journey of Sports Lock from the very beginning, but let's go to the very first day of Sports Lock. You've quit your regular 9 to 5 type job, and you're like, you know what? I'm all in. I'm gonna make that. I'm gonna make this happen. Let's talk about that day, your mindset, what you're feeling, because for me, that is probably one of the greatest days someone can have in their life. It's when you go and you say, I'm going to try and make my dream, I'm going to make my dreams happen. And not everybody has the courage to take that leap, to bring on uncertainty and risk and say, listen, I believe in myself and I believe I have greatness in me.
Well, the funny thing is that day one, Sports Lock didn't exist, right? We went from Sporier, we pivoted to Lock, we pivoted to Sports Lock. And on top of that, this wasn't a spontaneous decision. Ross and I, in 2011, in September, started working on a concept for this company. It wasn't until May 1st, 2012, that I left Groupon, where I was tasked with helping launch Groupon Goods, and took my foot off the bag and took that leap. So I'm not saying that being spontaneous wouldn't work for people. It just wasn't our path. You know, Ross and I tried to be a little bit more strategic about the plan. And what allowed us to do this was that we had an angel investor match what me and Ross were putting into our business. We believed in ourselves enough not to just say, hey, we deserve, our ownership should be sweat equity, but we wanted to bet on ourselves. And that's what we did. And so it was very planned. It was pretty methodical in terms of what that transition looked like. But I was in a unique place also, and I'll tell you what, I never had a 9 to 5. In sales, I always worked a lot of days, a lot of hours, 24/7 sometimes. And so my upbringing, that of having a father who was an entrepreneur and having it in my grandfather was, same thing. It's been in my blood. And so I think I was ready for it. At this stage of my career, being successful in corporate America, I was ready for that risk. I had no idea what it would be like. I was talking to my wife about this the other day. She asked me. I had no clue, how hard it would be, how difficult this is. But we've got 15 people here now. We've raised a lot of money. Our team has incredible jobs. We've got an A group of people here, and we're doing something really special. And so if you can see these things through, obviously the next step for us is winning in this, right? It's great to get that W on your belt. That's why you do these things. Similarly to why you play fantasy sports, right? You want to win, and it's a pride thing here, but we're doing this for a big industry. Sometimes I feel like I've got the weight of 57 million people behind us, even though they might not even know what we're doing yet, right? Or that we're creating something better for them that they might not know of. So a long road ahead of us, but we've achieved a lot over the last 3.5 years since we decided to take that leap of faith.
What is a typical day like for you from when you wake up to when you go to bed?
Yeah, well, I got 2 kids at home. One's 3 months, one's 2.5. So when I'm home, it's pretty hectic, that's for sure, around all hours of the day. But, I think for most entrepreneurs, it never stops. There's no switch where you can turn it off, especially when you're the owner. And I hope that most, if not all of our employees feel that way, because that's the environment that we wanted to build here. That's the culture that Ross and I take pride in terms of what can Sports Lock or this company become. A typical day varies all the time. There's just so many hats we have to wear. There's so many things you have to juggle, from small, tiny, tedious things to, massive decisions, and us trying to work with a Fortune 50 brand right now and build something incredible for them too. And so it's a juggling act, and you got to have great people who can really own processes in terms of, that area of responsibilities in that org chart, and feel comfortable handing work off to people and letting them take it from start to finish. A lot of collaboration though, a lot of, like I said, doing a handful of different things. And we're trying to, as we go into 2016, and I think you'll see this from a lot of entrepreneurs, find some type of balance in our lives. I would say the thing we've done the worst over the last 3.5 years is balance. But that's what it took. And we're 32, and so we're still young. And part of us taking this risk was knowing that we could do it at a young age and handle it. And definitely gotten a lot more gray hairs than I thought. But every day is fun. Every day is a challenge. Every day is unpredictable. And that's what I love about being an entrepreneur.
Amen to that. So, what skills or attributes do you look for in potential employees?
Yeah, it's got to be a fit culturally. That's the number one important thing. There's clearly a skill level. We try to say that, especially going into our B round and where we're at and having a lot of success, it's time to take this whole team to the next level, right? I mean, it's time to turn this thing into a really successful big business. And so right off the bat, you got to have the talent, right? But so now I'm talking about you're in this small pool of people who are talented enough on the engineering side to be a part of our team. And so now it's about the culture. It's about, the fit. It's about, are you ready to dig in? Are you ready to go certain days from 7:30 till 8 at night? Are you ready to work 6-7 days a week? Because it's like the song, Brooklyn, we go hard. We got to go hard here. You got to win in this space, and you got to outwork your competition. The Golden State Warriors aren't 23-0, whatever they are now, because they're cruising through and they're taking time off. They're working their asses off. We got to be the same way. We got to work harder than every single other company in this space. And there's a lot of companies out there. And there's a lot of people who are thinking like Ross and I were thinking in terms of, hey, you know what? There's this big tunnel under this UGA law, but everybody was going down one lane, a salary cap, daily lottery format. We're not naive to think we're the only ones thinking it. But we do believe we've got the best team. We do believe we got the best vision of what this space could look like in the next 30, 60, 90 days, but then also the next 1 to 3 years. And again, we're really excited from a consumer's perspective. And so you got to like sports, man. Rob, it's like you and your media business, and you've been successful and you've grown, and you're not going to bring on people who aren't passionate about that, because they just won't give it their all. They'll treat it like a 9 to 5. And we're not there yet. It's not to say that always as we grow, we're only looking for like these super hungry 70, 80, 90 hour a week people. But right now that's what we need. And that's how we can separate ourselves and build something great. Greatness comes with a lot of work. This has taken us a long way, and we're not great yet, but we're definitely getting closer.
Passion of the people I talk to that have been successful in sports and sports media. Passion is the number one thing, because you want to wake up every day and say, I feel so thankful and blessed. Like today's Monday. I'm so excited about Monday because I can't even imagine what's going to happen the rest of the week. So much cool, awesome shit that I don't even know. It's so fun and exciting.
We're in a fun business, Rob, obviously. And, sports never stops, right? Sports doesn't take time off. We'll take some time off in terms of, if something happens that's horrible to our country, as we all experienced 15 years ago, and the sports community comes together. But we're in a really exciting time right now. We got the college bowls that are kicking off, and SportsLock is doing something really exciting and unique around those events. That's what you can count on us to do. You can count on SportsLock to come up with cool, unique ways to make big events more fun. And I'm talking about, we're doing something awesome for the bowl games that we'll be releasing this week. We're doing something awesome for the NFL playoffs that we're going to be releasing this week. Fantasy is engaging and it's social, and that should never end. And whether you're in a football calendar, you're in a baseball calendar, you're in a hockey calendar, college sports, golf, coming soon to a theater near cricket, these are the things we think about. There's fun ways to build around those sports. And anybody who has ever had any skin in the game on sports, that if you had that skin in the game, it's a little bit more entertaining. And so we're trying to, from a competitions perspective, from a connecting perspective, continue to give users, again, especially millennials, a mobile-first experience where they can make sports more fun. That's our goal here.
So what are some of the biggest things that you've learned as you've grown this business? Because certainly from the very beginning until right now, you as a leader have probably seen ups and downs like a roller coaster, things that have worked, things that have not worked. And having an idea and having passion are only two sides of it, because there's so many other factors that can come in and potentially deter or hinder your growth. So what have you learned as the guy at the top of this that has helped you get to where you are now?
I'll tell you what, my background was working for a company called Edward Don. They were the largest equipment and supplier in the restaurant business, right? And in the restaurant space, anybody who's ever been in that business knows that something along the lines of 2 out of 10 companies will make it, right? 2 out of 10 will make it. In our space, being an entrepreneur, your chances of success are less than that, right? And so you gotta always be on your toes. You gotta be willing to pivot. Had Ross and I not pivoted, we wouldn't be in business, or this business wouldn't exist. Meaning we went from this concept of Sporier to another concept of lock to SportsLock. And so what you learn is that you have to always be rebuilding. You gotta always be rethinking. You can never have too many of your feet stuck in the sand, right, for too long, because then you'll get wiped out. And so, this is, we don't have the perfect formula yet. We haven't perfected this. This is still an ongoing, this is our life, right? Like, we're evolving, we're young. SportsLock has really only been in the market since September 1st. that is so recent in terms of the things that we can learn from it and how we can optimize it, how we can make it better. And so there's a long road, right? You have to have a really good plan. You have to know how to execute that plan. And you have to be willing to say and look in the mirror and be like, you know what, we were wrong, but we know how, or we have the people that can fix it. And you got to listen. You got to listen more than you speak. You got to listen to your consumers. Your gut can be right. You can make the right assumptions. You can follow that job's kind of, thought process. But this space is a little different, meaning that Ross and I and our team, no one's done this, Rob. I'm not knocking anybody in the daily game. But you got two big companies and one of them copied the other one, okay? We're not doing that. That wasn't good enough for us. I didn't want to go out there and be the third player in that game and go build something for 4 or 5 million people. I wanted to build something for 100 million people. I wanted to build something that the entire world can play if you like sports. I don't care what kind of fan you are. You turn the dial from 1 to 10, I want to build something for you. And we want to do it mobile first because the future is on mobile, right? And we were saying this 3 years ago. We're all thinking now, if you hear this, well, of course the future's mobile. But 3 years ago, that's not how it was. We were pioneers in that, especially when it came to sports gaming, right? Still so much web-based stuff out there because it's so complex. To be able to build for a commissioner and have settings that you can customize, personalize, that's heavy. We're figuring out ways to put that on mobile. And so, yeah, Rob, the best advice is you better be passionate, right? We can keep going back to that because if not, you're going to get burnt out real fast. And you got to have a good supporting cast from the house to the company because it's really hard to take these things on your own. And I'll say this from the get-go. If I didn't have Ross, I wouldn't be doing this. I can't imagine doing something like this, building a business from the ground and not having somebody else as a co-founder. To me, that's been by far and away the biggest advantage. Maybe that's not the right word, but it's been the greatest part of the process is having somebody else to constantly lean on. And so that, when one day someone's here and the other one's here, this person can pick them up, right? And it's constantly like that in the entrepreneurial world, especially doing this for so long.
All right, so speak to the people who dream of working in sports but haven't pulled the trigger yet. And we've talked about the passion, but I want to try and give them some almost actionable advice from you saying, all right, man, these people could potentially be SportsLock users, and maybe they're not trying to build the next SportsLock, but maybe they're just trying to go from their sales job to starting to write or start a sports blog or anything. What advice would you give them?
Well, I'll tell you, the biggest area where I could see growth in our sector is technology, right? So it's engineers, it's building more unique things that aren't just media companies out there, right? You know how hard the sports media world is and how hard it is to break in and the hustle you've gone through to build what you have. And it takes a lot of days. It takes a lot of hours. And so, there's still so much out there. That I think is the exciting thing about sports. You have constantly new and different people creating new experiences in sports or new technology or new, you look at what's happening with the NFL and new data analytics. But a lot of that is technology. A lot of that is taking sports out from being in this kind of archaic past and bringing it into the future. That's what we felt about gaming too. Sports gaming has been very archaic. CBS, Yahoo, ESPN, these are media companies. Yet all of us play our season-long fantasy, sports, live on those websites. Why is that? Why is it that we're letting these big media giants build? I got news for you. Those guys aren't their number one focus is building new and unique fun games in the space. The number one focus is how can they, make their platform a little better and how can they drive up engagement and retention so that they get more eyeballs and more ad traffic. This is just very different. And so I'd say you gotta, the future of sports is very bright, right? But I would say the number one thing is technology because I think that our space has been very behind for a very long time. But what do we know, right? I mean, it takes a lot of creative minds to come together, and you've got younger coaches and younger GMs than ever before, and there's still a lot that can be done on the team side. There's a lot that can be done on the league side, and there's a lot that can be done from the consumer side, and that leaves you with a lot of opportunities, and a lot of perspectives, or a lot of possibilities.
All right, let's have some fun, and we will end this with some rapid fire questions. You ready?
Ready.
You can only choose one. Bacon, sports, or beer?
Sports.
If you had to be buried in one sports jersey, what would it be?
Got to be hoop jersey.
Who specifically?
Oh, MJ.
Nice. Who is the greatest NFL running back ever?
The greatest NFL running back ever to me, I'm going to go Barry Sanders because I think his career was really short, and I would have loved to have seen what could have happened. So my most entertaining was Barry. Very hard to argue who's the best, but I liked Barry a lot. And he was in this place of me when I was growing up where, like, I was really getting into sports, and he was a Lion, and I was obviously a big Bears fan, so I got to watch him a lot. It was really cool.
I actually had Barry Sanders posters on my wall in Pittsburgh on those horrible teams. He was absolutely amazing. All right, who is the greatest Los Angeles Laker ever?
Wow. I'll give the respect to the man who played for 20 years and he's on his farewell tour. We'll give it to Kobe.
Over Magic and Kareem?
Again, Magic was unfortunately someone's career that was cut short. But I think from my era, again, it's so hard to argue the greatest, but the most entertaining, the one that I connect to the most, and the one who's current is Kobe. So I'll give it to Kobe. But you could throw a lot of people into that conversation, that's for sure.
What's the most memorable game you've ever been to live?
I'll tell you which one was one of the coolest experiences. Game 6, even though the Bulls got blown out by the Cavs. We were on the floor. It was very cool. It was unique. I sat next to the Bulls bench, and I got a new perspective of what it's like to be a coach and the relationship and how horrible it was between the Bulls players and Thibodeau. And so from the whole spectrum of like being a fan of what I watch and how engaged I am, that was my coolest experience by far.
All right. You're a Michigan guy. Describe your excitement about Michigan football now that the Jim Harbaugh era has started.
I'll tell you what, a year ago, I was over it. I mean, there was a whole bunch of us that were just looking at what the next 10, 15 years would look like, and it wasn't bright. Our future is very bright with Harbaugh. He's a phenomenal college coach. His energy, his passion, I think it fits him so much better at that level than at the pro level. And I think Michigan's relevant again, and I believe the country knows that. And I did not expect this year to be the year, and I don't expect next year to be the year. But watch out, 2017 is when I think Michigan can make a really big splash. Give the system some more time, we could be relevant for sure on a national level.
Speaking of culture, ... I mean, look at what that guy did with culture. All right.
Unbelievable.
One song plays every time you walk into a room. What song is it?
Well, my nickname on the app is Hollywood, so maybe we'll go with Jay-Z's Hollywood song. It's something, it depends on the mood. You know, if I'm walking up to bat, which is funny, I wanted to do that at the company here, you know, where everybody, when you walk in, you get your song. And it's like, you know, as you walk into the company, right, you walk in on that Monday morning, what better thing to fire you up than when you're walking up to home plate, right? You're starting a game. And so we're trying to, like, figure out ways of doing that in the business world. So depending on the day, but most of the time I'm going something hip-hop, and if I'm going hip-hop, I'm going Jay.
So I've also dreamed of that, and there's a 100% chance that if and when the Bacon Sports Man Cave office opens, I will have introductions for the people where they get to pick their music, and then you get everyone around and make them feel special for the day. And when we're talking about culture, boom, that's how we do it. We'll videotape that. You'll have that with you for the rest of your life.
That's right. Fun and different. You know, Rob, that's what we love about you. And hopefully, as you and I have been talking, we're excited to continue to do some exciting things and some unique things with Bacon Sports and you personally. And that's how we think too, Rob. You know, that's the fun part about sports. There's no limit. There's no scripts. You can kind of write what feels right with each company. And that's how we think. And that's the culture we want to build here. I want people to love what they do. This is not a 9-to-5. It's hard to, in any industry, be successful with a 9-to-5, right? So, but this is about firing people up, and there's no better way, in my mind, as a sports fan, to do it than pretending that you're walking up to home plate, or the tip is about to start, or the whistle's about to blow, and that's a fun thing for sports fans.
Speaking of no limit, we want to make them say, oh, na-na-na-na, na-na-na-na.
Way to close them with na-na-na-na.
All right. You get to play a round of golf with any 3 athletes ever. Who's joining you in your foursome?
Arnold Palmer for sure. I'm assuming let's go with living, right? Because we won't pick off some people from the dead. We'll go Arnold. I'd go two golfers. I'd go Tiger and Arnold. I know Tiger's a really good guy, actually. And then maybe like a Steph Curry, just because he's so good at golf and he's current. I think that would be a pretty good foursome. Me, Tiger, Steph, and Arnold. I'd have fun. I'd have to rotate carts if we're riding, rotate every 6 holes.
Right.
Spend time with each of them.
All right, two last questions. Who is your pick to win the college football national championship?
Oklahoma.
What do you like about Oklahoma? Because you got big game Bob Stoops, who has won one, but I don't know if I can completely trust him.
I'll tell you what I like about Oklahoma. It doesn't remind me of a Bob Stoops team. That's what I like about them. They're dynamic. They're different. Young kid at quarterback's an incredible quarterback. They spread the field well. And I think they're playing with a chip on their shoulder. I think that, they've been a little disrespected right now. Bad loss to Texas. That changes the whole dynamic of the football playoff in terms of the seeding if that doesn't happen. I just like their style. I think they have it. I think that this is the year that Oklahoma can make a splash. I'll tell you something, though. Michigan State versus Alabama is going to be a great game. I'm really excited to watch that. Michigan State's getting a lot of points. I will be surprised if that game is not close.
I saw Alabama is even money. No way I'm taking that. I don't believe this is as good of an Alabama team as we've seen. We're talking about, that's a legacy number right there of Alabama is Alabama. Case in point, look at Ohio State last year.
Yep.
All right. Last question. Do you have a recommendation of an awesome podcast to listen to or a book to read?
You know, the funny thing about podcasts, and you and I were talking about this, is that, I'm just getting into the podcast game, and I don't have one that is a go-to. We're working on something that hopefully will be entertaining to sports fans out there, so stay tuned for that. You know, I love reading entrepreneurial books. The one I gave you is the one I'll give everybody because I think it connects with me the most about how you can think differently, how you can act differently, and that's a book by Ryan Halliday, and it's called Trust Me, I'm Lying. It's a quick read. It's a good read. And it'll open up your mind regardless of what industry you're in. So I would highly recommend everybody get Trust Me, I'm Lying, fun read. You can speak on it yourself. I recommended it to you, but it inspired me a lot. So that's my favorite one out there.
I just zoomed through it in about a week. It is fantastic for anybody who wants to have a creative marketing mindset to disrupt, be different, and make it happen. So, all right, Hollywood, time to drop some plugs. What else you got going on, SportsLock? Drop anything you want right now.
I'm going to tell you something. Keep your eyes open for a really cool game we're doing for the NFL playoffs and for the bowl season in college sports. College sports on a fantasy level still hasn't really taken off. I think there's some reasons for that, and I think we can fix that. And that's a fun challenge for us, right? How do we build that engaging experience like we all do for NFL, like 80% of the market does, but how can we transition that to either new sports or new games outside of just the NFL experience? And so I'm really excited for what we're doing for the Bowls, but something we've been doing offline for a long time for the NFL playoffs, we're going to be offering also. So the next 30 days are really exciting for us. It's going to be a fun way to close out the year. Android users, you guys asked, you kept asking, and we are delivering. December 2015, Android SportsLock will be available. So that's a really good excitement for us.
Once again, what is that promo code and where can they find SportsLock?
The number one food in the world, ran by my favorite person in the world, Rob Cressy. You type in bacon, you go to the App Store, you type in SportsLock, one word. You go to sportslock.com. We'll send you a quick text that sends you the link right to your phone. But stay tuned, like I said, Android users. We're no longer discriminating and only offering to iOS. So we're a couple weeks away from that. Type in bacon. We'll take care of you when you get on the app.
So for all of you who have made it this far, I wanted to thank you. And I also want you guys to thank Todd and SportsLock. Hit them up on Twitter at SportsLock. Just say, hey, Todd, thanks for doing this interview. I want you guys to download it. Todd's one of those guys. I like to bring on people whose brands I support and who are friends of mine. That's how we roll at Bacon Sports. You guys know who's at the top of this. You don't know who's at the top of FanDuel and DraftKings. This is Todd Heyden right there. They are making awesomeness happen, just like we get down at Bacon Sports. Todd, I am so much looking forward to seeing the growth of SportsLock, and I know this will be the first of many times you will be on the podcast.
Rob, such a pleasure to be here anytime. You've been one of our biggest fans from day one. You know the feelings are mutual on our end. Anything we can ever do with Bacon. I think Chicago has a small entrepreneurial sports community, and I'm very excited for the world to keep seeing more things, SportsLock and Bacon, that we could do together. A lot ahead of us in 2016 and beyond.
Certainly. And as always, guys, you can find Bacon Sports on virtually every social media outlet at Bacon Sports. And Make sure to check out the rest of the series on how to make it in sports media. We've interviewed Jim Weber from Lost Letterman, as well as Larry Brown from Larry Brown Sports. And if there's anyone you guys want me to interview from the world of sports, hit me up, boom@baconsports.com. That's all. Boom shakalaka.
Thanks, Rob, for having me, man. I'll talk to you soon, brother.